Well, hello. Today, I want to spend a little bit of time with you. I've gotten some questions and I've gotten some surprises. We're going to talk about 25 types of digital assets, and I'm only scratching the surface. So if you think there's just a few, oh no. And the list is constantly growing. So let's get started, and we're going to talk about 25 different digital assets that come to my mind really quickly. And these go into whether you are doing estate planning, or you're doing asset planning, or you're doing your business planning, because many of these digital assets may actually be a part of your business. So in any type of a business agreement, when you go to sell assets, you may decide whether you want to include a digital asset or you want to exclude it, or is it integral to being part of the business? Let me talk about the one that's probably the easiest. How many of you have a cell phone? Well, I know you do. How many of you have photos that are on that cell phone? Well, of course. Well, when you think about probably the most prolific digital asset that I can think of, it's going to be photos, because so many of us have thousands of them now that they're on your phone and that you can store those. Well, how valuable are those digital assets to you in the photos? Some of those memories, probably priceless. What about if you have a video, ta-da, or on a YouTube channel? Yes. And you have videos that are put up, whether they are of family, they are of funny events, or if they're part of your marketing program, they're educational, such as this video that I'm working with you right now. So on YouTube, you could have digital assets. You could have one or two, or you could have thousands of them. Some of you use them for lead generation. Some of you use those assets just to express yourself, or to share a talent, or to share a craft. There's another one, crypto. How many of you are familiar with crypto? Well, crypto assets are held digitally. So when you think about all the different kinds of Bitcoin and all of the platforms that are out there with different names and symbols, well, that is a type of wealth creation that some individuals participate in, but those are digital assets that are held out there. How many of you have texts on your phones? Now, you may not think of those as digital assets, but that's exactly what they are. So when you look at text, or you look at Messenger, anything that is in those, many people will save those conversations to be used later for reference, or as proof and documentation that a conversation has occurred and who it occurred with. So think about digital assets now, that, something you do every day and you don't think twice about unless you lose them. Do you have any emails? Most of us have had emails for years and years and years. All of your emails are a digital asset. Where are they held? If you stop working with a particular vendor, or if you close an email address, do you lose all of that data? Do you need to keep all of that data? So when you think about the volume of emails you have, that's definitely a digital asset that you have. How many of you use Canva? Now, Canva is a tool that is excellent for putting together content and making everything from a greeting card to your book, an ad, something you want on Facebook, whatever it is. Canva can let you create a schedule, so many different things. But in your Canva account, those are digital assets because they're created digitally. And again, you may have a few, or you could have thousands of images that are there within that platform that you're using. Some of you use Photoshop. What is in Photoshop? Digital assets. And many of those are unique art creations. Maybe you have overlaid, you have done specific campaigns, or you've used techniques. But with those particular digital assets, Photoshop, absolutely a digital asset. Then when we start looking about things like, well, have you ever heard of Google? Wow, think about that. How many of you are using Google Documents, Google Photos, Google Cloud, Google Drive, Google? Do you have a Google business listing? So when you start thinking about those kind of things, my gosh, we've got a whole bunch more digital assets. A lot of them have the name Google that are attached to them. But what is the value of them? What all do you have? It's incredible to think about how much the world has changed with the digital platforms that are available now. Do you have any audio recordings? Do you use Searchy or any of the other programs that would take your assets that are in an audio or a video format? And I'm just throwing Searchy out there. That's one of the tools that I like using because it has a transcription service. All of those are definitely digitally held assets that you're going to have. Now, when we're going on, I'm only at number 10. And are you already thinking, oh my God, I never realized how much digital assets I have? And people really, I think, discount the value of your digital assets because you think about bank accounts and cars and money. And no, some of you have tremendous value either now or later in your digital assets. So we'll talk about number 10. Do you have a podcast? How many people do you know that have a podcast? Well, those podcasts are created. They're held in a digital format. So all of your podcast episodes, each one of those are a digital asset. And for many of you, you will take the podcast and you will use that to create additional content that you're putting up in other places that we will mention a little further down in the list. So there is a tremendous value on those digital assets that happen to be podcast related. Some of you are doing live interviews. You're also doing radio where it is recorded or it is streamed, however you have that set up. Facebook Live, that wasn't even in my list, but all of the different things along those that store and create your digital assets. So let's talk a minute about Facebook. Facebook has your contacts in it. Facebook has, for many of you, you do live streams, they're recorded. You also have different postings and things you put up. My gosh, look at the volume that you have in Facebook. If you were to completely lose your Facebook, would it be devastating to you? Do you have a plan A or a plan B? With Facebook, lives forever. If you don't fill out some things in the event of your death, your heirs can't take down your account. It stays there forever. So huge digital asset that millions and millions and billions of people probably are using Facebook and those type of tools that are available. This one will be a little surprising, I think. How many of you have opened an online savings account or a money market account with a bank? Well, you know, those are digital assets. Yes, it is cash that you can access at any time, with certain parameters, of course, but those are digital assets. Even though they are cash that are held in the accounts, no, they've been set up digitally. Did you ever think of that one? Now, for some of them, do you have online courses? Do you have webinars? Do you have postings similar to this that you're putting out? What are some of your assets if you are an internet-based entrepreneur that go along with what you do to create wealth in your household? Online courses, webinars, my gosh, how much could you have in digital assets there? And what's going to happen to them? How many of you have done software programs? You know, that is something that is obviously a digital asset that goes into that category. And as you think about software programs, that can even, you know, fall over into some of the apps that we're using on our cell phones. Those are digitally based assets. It's not necessarily on paper that you're going to be able to do that. Let's go on to another. Do you know what? We're at number 15, all right? Number 15. Have you ever sold anything on eBay, Spotify, Pinterest? There's a whole bunch of platforms out there that some of you have very valuable accounts. On those very valuable accounts that you're using for selling platforms, you have reviews, you've got products, you've got examples. So those digital assets that are up on selling platforms, again, extremely valuable, but not always something that you think of. Even if you're not doing these platforms, I would say for a very large business, some of you use them for hobbies or selling off your things, but there is a value to that digital asset and that presence that you have built. Some of you do blogs. Yeah, WordPress. Look at any of the accounts and different vendors that are out there. Sometimes I'll only give you one or so because you all know there's a ton of platforms and more coming out all the time. So if you have things that are in your blogs, That is a digital asset that you're using. Do you know, if you think about, it's not exactly a blog, but if you do any of the things that are out there, Quora, some of the others that you comment on, Medium, those type of things can be a digital asset, because where are the assets held? They're done on a digital basis. This one can be incredible. Do you have a membership site? Well, what is a membership site? It's certainly not on paper. A membership site is also going to be digital. And any content that you put up on the membership site, it's going to be digital. Think about that. So now we're up to, this one will surprise a few of you. How many of you have opened up your stock, your investment accounts, and you know they're digital? They're not held on paper. So all of those digital assets, and just a hint that I can give you there, if they happen to be your IRA or retirement-based accounts, your 401k, solo one, 401k, SEP IRA, there's a ton of different ones out there, but they are held digitally. You want to have beneficiaries on each and every one of those, a primary and a contingent. If you'll watch some other one of my videos, you should see where I talk about titling of assets and beneficiaries. You should understand and use per capita, per stirpes. Not going to go over it here, but I'm telling you, you want to go watch that particular video too. So you can have a lot of digitally held investment assets, even if they are not retirement accounts. They could be your brokerage or your individual accounts. We have some tricks to keep those out of probate, which I'm going to suggest you do on another video. TOD, transfer on death, POD, pay on death, things that you really need to know. And if you don't know, check us out on some other videos and we'll help you learn those things that you need to know. What about your website? All of the information that is on your website, any presence that you have done, any of your rankings that have gone along with your website, of being able to found on SEO and all of those types of things, your website can be a huge digital asset that you own. Again, whether you choose to sell it or not, it's a huge digital asset with whatever you put on it or whatever you take down from it. And oh Lord, never let your domain expire. Never, never. That's horrible. Or let somebody else buy it out from under you because you didn't renew it. What about those of you who are authors like I am? Do you know how many digital assets that you can have as an author? It really, in some ways, can be unlimited depending upon how prolific you happen to be. Do you have a Kindle book? That's a digital asset. Do you have an audiobook? That's definitely a digital asset. Do you have any workbooks that you have? Maybe you use those with the clients that you serve or as part of your programs. Do you have any PDFs that are lead magnets or those items that you give as your giveaway? All of those are indeed digital assets that work along with print media. Can be print media, but where does it start? Let's think about another one. Ever heard of TikTok? Yeah, well, TikTok, that's pretty easy. That's definitely a digital asset. What about Instagram? Yeah, that's a digital asset, no doubt about it. Ever heard of Twitter? Definitely. I mean, those are ones, again, that are very common. And when you think about how much you interact with one or several of these particular platforms, you know, that all falls into place. This one has been emerging as you see the digital art. Now, on the digital art that is created, some of that is created, you know, in platforms. Some of it is being created by AI now, which is a little different, a little unusual. But if it gets the job done, fine, whatever. But your art may be in a digital format, even if you choose to print it or reproduce it in other methods later. A lot of digital art is a digital asset. All right, so let's talk about 25. We're at the end of our list, and I went rather quick because I'm sure your mind is going, oh my, and I'm just touching the iceberg here. I'm telling you, in your cell phone, all of those phone numbers, all of those notes that you've got and the emails and all of that, everything like that, those are all digital assets. And for many of you, your life hinges on that because we don't have the little telephone books and we don't have those things anymore. In a lot of cases, you're going to have integrated with Outlook or some other programs that are there so that that data is shared between different platforms. Now, haven't spent too long on this, but I hope I've opened your mind to that there are so many different facets of when you're dealing with asset management. And the digital assets, I think it's one that's really underappreciated or simply ignored. Now, for those of you who are putting together your estate plans or your business plans that are including the digital assets, I want you to realize what an enormous value that they have on the short term and the long term. So don't forget to include the value of your digital assets in any planning that you take. Now, I hope you found this to be very, very helpful. I'm Amy Herrick. I am a profit building specialist, and I also work with estates and other things. Please click the like button. Please share it, and then also subscribe so you'll get a chance to see other videos and things we have. Check down in the notes. Thank you so much. And if you've got some topics that you'd like me to cover in the future, by all means, go ahead, drop us a note, and we'll be adding topics as the demand allows. But again, click the like, click the subscribe button. I look forward to seeing you again really soon. Have a blessed day.